Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kabir Segal. I'm your host. Welcome to the Quarantine Film Series. We are back after a long hiatus. It's great to be back. I'm coming to you live from Atlanta, Georgia. And we have been doing these, I think, over 120 episodes of conversations with great creative individuals. We started this series in earnest back in March when so many of my my creative friends, musicians, had their gigs canceled, had their concerts canceled. And not only were concerts canceled, all big events like film festivals. So there are many creative individuals, artists, musicians, filmmakers who I think it's important to shine the light back on them. And, they're the ones who create the incredible works that entertain us and challenge us and provoke us throughout the years. So this is obviously a platform for that. If you want to get on the show, shoot us a note through my social media channels. We'll try to get you on the show. And we're going to keep these going. There's so many incredible films, and we want to make sure we feature them. And I'm very excited about this show in particular because oftentimes we bring on people who I don't know. But this person I know very well. We've worked together. He's a friend. Matt Porwoll is an Emmy Award-winning cinematographer based in New York City, my once and future home. His work has recently screened theatrically, appeared on TV networks, and like on Discovery, Showtime, HBO, CNN, all over the place. His feature documentary, Cartel Land, which he shot and co-produced, won the Best Cinematography Awards at the 2015 Sundance Film Festival and was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Documentary Feature. His film Tigerland premiered in competition at the Sundance Film Festival last year. His latest project, which is really fascinating, we're going to talk to him more extensively about, is Once Upon a Time in Uganda, which was a selection of the South by Southwest 2020 festival, which didn't happen, but it's so awesome to be selected. And we'll talk about what that is. And I'm very excited because he is the director of photography for the film I recently worked on called Fandango with the Wall. And so it's wonderful to bring your friends because you get on the show because you get to catch up and see how they're doing, So with that, I want to welcome the great Matt Porwoll. You're the best cinematographer, in my opinion, this side of the Mississippi River.
Well, thank you. That's quite an introduction. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. Tell me first, Matt, I always like to ask, how has the quarantine affected you, your line of work? What were you going to do that was canceled or postponed? How are you coping?
Yeah, I mean, I think like so many other filmmakers out there, it's been quite an interesting journey. I was fortunate in the beginning that a director that I've done a lot of projects with, Matt Heineman, embarked on doing a film about COVID in New York City. And so I was able to do some work on that, but it's still tricky. And so did a little bit of that, and then things kind of slowed down and kind of been settling in like everybody else. But I think one thing that's been really interesting is, and I don't know if you've been experiencing this as well, but one thing that COVID I think has done is allowed me to kind of reorient and kind of reclaim the things in my life that are important and kind of reshift that focus. So in some ways, it's been nice to be able to take a little bit of a break from, just the constant grind of work, but at the same time, very much missing that as well. So, things are starting to pick up a little bit. I've got a few projects that are just starting to shape up, a few shoot days that are rolling in. So, hopefully things continue on the upward trajectory and we can all get back to work.
Do you have a daily routine that you settled into, like a quarantine routine that you wake up at a certain time? Do you have a structure to your day? That creative individuals sometimes do this, sometimes they don't. What is your structure?
I don't, which is funny because I think, I think I've been so trained outside of COVID to not have a schedule whatsoever, because sometimes, I'm on the road for, weeks or a month at a time. And then I come back and then I don't have work for, a week or two. And so it's kind of a roller coaster all over the place. So I've still found myself settling into that same routine. But at the same time, I think, it's been nice to kind of have time to be able to think about what it is that you want to do today without, everything else that would be going on normally.
Yeah. So let's get to some of your incredible portfolio. I want to start with our mutual project, Fandango at the Wall. What was it like working for you on Fandango at the Wall? Here we see a shot in Veracruz, Mexico, and the film is obviously about Son Jarocho music. So Matt, what was it like working on this project for you?
I mean, it was a dream to work on this project. I mean, everybody involved in this project, both behind the camera and in front of the camera, were just exceptional to work with. And, getting to not only learn about Son Jarocho music, but also, getting to go to Veracruz and meet everybody, at home in the environment where this really came from, and being able to steep yourself in it was just amazing. And, as always, the thing that I love about documentaries is, you're always finding yourself in a situation that you haven't been in before, and you're learning something new and you're meeting new people. And this really, kind of set the bar for that experience, because it was just such a positive message, such positive characters, such positive music, that was just really kind of a nice change of pace to be able to do something like this, and get to share this with everybody else.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think everyone on the crew just, and I was mentioning that even the post production team was so just mesmerized with your film work. And you'll see, those of you who see the film, you'll see how the camera moves almost like it's a musical instrument, and that's Matt's incredible work. So he is one of the we should have credited you as a musician in, in there as well. One of the reasons I love working with Matt is because he had experience working in Mexico, and we kind of joked that this time he's being coming into Mexico with a project that it's in a different context. So the one previously you worked on was Cartel Land, and that might have been more difficult or challenging. Tell me about your work on Cartel Land.
Yeah, so Cartel Land was, certainly an amazing ride, and also a pretty challenging ride to make this film. So, for those of you that don't know, Cartel Land is a film about, the two different sides of the U.S.-Mexico border. One is following the Arizona border recon with Tim Foley here. It's basically a citizen militia group that patrols the border to apprehend migrants crossing. And then on the flip side, you've got the auto defenses in Michoacan, who are a citizen group that basically rose up against the cartels and said enough is enough, and we want our towns back, we want our life back, and took matters into their own hands. And so through the telling of these two-sided stories, purely through each of their own perspectives, we kind of sought to try to understand what happens when you take matters into your own hands, where that can go. Regardless of the purest intentions that you might have, it never stays that way. And so that's kind of the premise of the film. But it was definitely a difficult project to work on. But I'm incredibly proud with how it turned out.
Yeah, talk to me about the craft of this one. What did you shoot on? Because it seems like you had to be pretty agile in how you were moving.
Yeah, I mean, this was cinema verite documentary at its core. For all the stuff that we were doing in Arizona, it was a team of oftentimes two, me and the director. Sometimes it was a team of three, and we'd have kind of an all-around helping producer, PA with us. We never had sound with us, so so I was doing that, or Matt Heineman was doing that. We were both shooting cameras. And then in Mexico was basically the same thing, except we had our producer out of Mexico City, and we had a fixer and driver. So that was four of us in Mexico, at the most. So it was definitely a challenging project in that we never knew what a day was gonna give us. We had plans, but for the most part, we were spending 24/7 with our characters. And so, with Arizona, we would go on, day-long hikes. We would be sleeping out, in the mountains. So you have to carry everything with you, and be prepared for that. So, the limitations of equipment was certainly the name of the game on this film, both in
Totally.
Arizona and Mexico.
Was it similar for you with Tigerland, the other film you've worked on recently? Those similar limitations.
Similar, but I think, with Tigerland, it kind of depended on the situation. Um, thankfully we were able to have a little bit more of a home base when we were in Far East Russia or in India. And so, we were able to have a little bit more equipment with us. But when it comes to documentaries, it's all, where are you going? What's the situation? What's the environment, here in 40 below temperatures? You've got a lot more batteries than you would normally have on another project. There's things that you have to keep in mind of keeping all your equipment safe. But you also don't want to bring more than you need. So, it's always kind of trying to strike that balance of what you need to tell the story, but not making it so complicated that you can't tell the story.
Yeah, for Tiger Lands, I bet you're glad you had those extra zoom lenses. How close did you see
Yes.
the tigers?
So with this particular shot, we were able, thankfully Canon was able to come on as a supporter of the film. And so for this, Canon has this incredible lens. It's a 50 to 1000. It's a good size lens. It's probably, 12, 13 pounds, something like that. But for shooting documentary, to be able to go from 50 millimeters where you can get, a pretty decent, wide shot, to 1000 millimeters where I was, in some shots was able to go in even tighter and just see, a close up of the eyeball on the tiger, was pretty amazing. And in this national park, in Kana, you're not able to get out of the Jeep. So you never set foot on the ground in the park at all for obvious reasons. So we had this lens, and camera built up on a tripod, ratchet strapped down into the back of a Jeep. And, as this tiger is walking down the road behind the Jeep, we're just slowly, kind of tracking along and filming it. And so, at times, with this shot, the tiger was probably 20 feet away, 30 feet away. But then there's a shot in the film where I zoom out to the full 50 millimeter wide of the lens, and you see that tiger is 6-7 feet from the bumper of the truck, and they're like, we got to go. And then we zoom ahead. So yeah, it was a pretty amazing project to be a part of on this one for sure.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it. I want to ask you about the feature that you've been working on recently, Once Upon a Time in Uganda. What a special film that is, and I know you were at it for a few years. What was the inspiration? How did you get involved in this particular film?
Yeah, Once Upon a Time in Uganda I still feel like, kind of my favorite project, both in just the process of making the film, the subject matter, but also just the pure joy that everybody gets. So Once Upon a Time in Uganda is a film about Isaac Nabwana, who lives in Kampala, and he started making incredibly low budget, no budget action kung fu films with his community in Wakaliga. And, with not a lot of resources, no money, they're building their own props. An actor will jump in and do a scene and then hand the microphone off to another actor, and they'll do the mic, and then they'll keep switching around. So it's, everybody's doing everything. And they started making just these incredible films, just with what they had available to do so. Self-taught with everything, all of these effects, self-taught. And they made a film called Who Killed Captain Alex, that was put up on YouTube, and just a trailer of that film was put up on YouTube because there wasn't enough internet bandwidth to upload the entire film. And so that trailer really took off online and gained Wakaliwood, this cult following all over the world. And that trailer attracted the attention of Alan Hoffmanis in New York, who is been in film all his life. He's a film curator, has worked at film festivals, worked every possible job in the film industry that you could imagine. And he saw this and said, I need to meet Isaac. I need to understand, what is it about Isaac that allows him to do this? Because I've never seen kind of more of a pure form of filmmaking in all my years in this industry. So Alan bought a one-way ticket to Kampala, flew down there, didn't call, didn't write, just found Isaac, and they formed this bond. I mean, Alan now lives next door to Isaac, and is an actor in the films, is a producer of the films, helps handling the international distribution of the films, So our movie really just became almost kind of a romantic comedy between Alan and Isaac, and all of the highs and lows that a romance would have.
How did you particularly get involved? Did you know them before?
So I had done a lot of work with the director, Catherine Zubek, and we're really good friends. And have as you know through our experience, that relationship between cinematographer and director is really important because oftentimes in documentaries the director is not able to direct as it's happening, and so we'll talk about it, we'll walk through everything, and then when the cameras are rolling, I'm really the one that has to translate that. And so, Catherine and I have done a lot of work together, and a co-director came in, Hugo Perez, who has been longtime friends with Alan. And so, Catherine's been hearing these stories of Alan from Hugo for years at this point, and finally said, "We got to make a movie about this. I mean, this is incredible." And so, Hugo connected us with Alan, and we went to Uganda, and we basically shot for 4 years following this relationship and this story.
Got it, got it. I always like to ask because I'm a music producer, as you know. Walk me through the soundtrack and the music for the film.
Oh man,
What can the audience expect to hear?
the soundtrack of this movie is so great. We really had an incredible score that was put together, and a lot of the basis, in a lot of the early cuts of this movie, obviously when we hadn't had the score composed yet, um, we're working with temp tracks, and so Morricone was really the foundation of that. So Good, Bad, and the Ugly, all of these spaghetti westerns, and just this really kind of rich, intense music, and that was kind of our guiding force through all of this. So it's a really really fun story.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. And then talk a little. We talked about the cameras you filmed on, but the editing process. Are you guys doing it in Final Cut or Premiere? How does that? What kind of software package are you using to edit the film?
So the film was cut in Adobe Premiere. Um, and again, this, I definitely want to back up because this project was entirely self-funded.
Hmm.
Catherine, that's the director there next to me. She basically scrapped this together. We were able to get some funding through grants and things like that, but the large majority of this was, a lot of donated time. And so, partly that's why it takes so long to make some of these films. But that's also, also where a lot of the passion comes from, because we're all in it, not for the business of it, but for the love of it. So it was a lengthy production process and an equally lengthy post-production process. We did, Catherine cut a lot of the film, as well as Amanda Hughes, who had cut some previous films of Catherine's. And so the two of them would basically in Premiere share projects back and forth, and the editing, went on for about 2 years to finally get it, to that point. So,
Hmm.
labor of love all around.
Totally. Well, congratulations on the South by Southwest selection. No small feat there. I'm sure people watching this and people watching this on the rerun will want to know, when can I see this or how can I see this? I know that's maybe a question difficult to answer, but do you have any indications of when audience members might be able to check this out?
So it's, as all of us have been going through, this has been a tricky year to try to sell a film. We were set for the South by premiere. Very exciting, great festival. I think Hollywood in and of themselves have also had a really great experience in Austin and at South by. So we were really looking forward to opening this film to an audience there. And then the festival was canceled. Well, festivals are the place for the most part, especially with a self-financed, project, no producers on board, kind of jump starting that beforehand. That was the market. That's where we were going to go and be able to show this to people and meet with distributors and buyers. And unfortunately, that wasn't able to happen. So, we're still in the process of shopping it around, pitching it, sending screeners to people. So it's a difficult time to sell a movie, but I have full confidence that it'll happen. The other thing that we're really hoping for is Wakaliwood has a massive following in Europe, much more so than the United States. And so we're also keeping our eyes open for European festivals and European selling markets. So, hopefully I'll have an answer to that soon of when people can see it, but hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah. And what do you hope the audience takes away from this film when they do see it? What would you like to convey is the takeaway here?
For me, I think the takeaway of this is, there's a few different things. But one is Isaac's just undying passion to do what he loves to do. And there are plenty of challenges for everybody to actually accomplish that. But there's a lot of challenges for Isaac to be able to make these films. And but at the same time, he just says, I don't care. I just want to do it. And he does it incredibly well, and he does it his way. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but that's part of the process. So, I think through showing, that passion and being able to get a community and an audience behind you to support what you're doing, is amazing. And being able to attract more eyes to this, it really just shows that if there's something that you want to do, it is fully achievable. A lot of hard work, a lot of sweat, but it's fully achievable. And I just think that's, to me, the underlying, foundation of this movie.
Awesome. I want everyone who's watching to check out Matt's website, mattporwoll.com. We'll put that up on the screen. Check out all the amazing projects, which he has many of them listed there. Do you have anything else you want to mention you're working on? You mentioned briefly the COVID project. Anything else that you want to briefly mention?
I would love to. Thankfully, I've got a few projects that are on the horizon. Certainly COVID, put a hold on a lot of those projects and didn't know if they were going to come back or not. But they've started. So I've got about 4 projects in the mix right now, but as of now, none of them have been announced or released. So I'm unfortunately not able to talk about them, but at least things are starting to come back to normal. So
yeah. We have a question from Sally on at LinkedIn. She wants to know, what advice do you have for aspiring cinematographers? What should they know if they want to make that a career?
There's a lot of different ways to get into cinematography. There's certainly no one way to do it. But I can tell you the way that I did it, which I found to be incredibly helpful and educational. I went to film school, but I would also say that, not to knock film school, but most of your experience and knowledge in this industry will come from just working in it and learning, in the field. So after I graduated school, I moved to New York and I worked at a camera rental house for 2 years, Able Cine. And I think for me, that was the best way to get into this industry because, there's no real job applications to be able to be a cinematographer. It's just word of mouth and who and building those relationships. So working at a rental house for me was perfect because I was able to meet, producers, cinematographers, camera assistants, operators, everybody in the camera department and the people that hire those in the camera department. But I was also able to learn all the equipment, which, obviously was very, very helpful. And then after I left the rental house, I worked as a camera assistant for 10 years. And so that was really the best training that I ever could have done. I, of course, like everybody else, came out of film school feeling like I'm a cinematographer and I'm going to jump right into it. But, being a cinematographer, especially in documentaries, is so much more than just knowing how to point the camera and knowing how to turn the camera on and press record. It's really about the nuances of building these relationships and working as quietly and unobtrusively as possible in a scene. And the only way that I was able to learn that was by watching a lot of people who are far more talented than me do that as a camera assistant. And so that journey was amazing. And then, the time came that, I had worked long enough. I was able to, as a camera assistant in docs, you get to shoot a lot of second camera, you get to work with the cinematographers. And then, the time came to make the switch and I felt ready to do it. So, that's the way that I did it. There's a million and one ways to get in, but, that worked for me.
Yeah. One last question. Vanessa's asking, you have a map behind you and you've traveled all over the world as a cinematographer. Do you have a place that you haven't been that would like to go on a future project?
Ooh, good question. I have not spent enough time in Asia. I would love to do that. In fact, I really haven't spent much time at all. I mean, I've spent time in Russia and India, and that's kind of the extent. So that's probably the top of the list. But with that said, I think so far, East Africa has been my favorite place to go. I mean, I even have, where is it? Over here. That's a gift from Wakaliwood. But yeah, I mean, I actually have this map behind me with, I don't think you can really see it, but just I have pins in all the places that I go, and I love to look at that and kind of, be thankful for the number of places that I have been, but also kind of being able to look forward and say, there's a lot of places on this map that I haven't gone to that I'd love to.
Is there a pin in Veracruz?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So look, everyone who's been listening, you see how thoughtful and insightful he is in his responses and his answers. That's the kind of meticulous kind of craft that he brings to working the cameras and just giving his genius to the films that he's part of. So I just think of you as more of being a cinematographer is a big deal, but you're kind of a conceptual artist and through. So thanks for joining us, Matt, on the quarantine film series, and I'm excited to celebrate Fandango in the next whenever. We'll see what happens. And everyone, thanks for watching this again, the quarantine film series. I want to thank my producer here, Shane, who makes the best Spanish tortilla. So if you're in his neck of the woods, ask him. He makes hummus too, but he's been making Spanish tortilla recently. Keep it tuned here. Quarantine film series. We'll be back throughout the next few weeks. So look forward to seeing you then. Everyone stay safe. Take care.